Hey, we're back, and for the month of May, we've been traveling through France, and we visited three different cities. So in this video, we're going to be sharing our expenses while we were visiting France for the month of May, and these are usually broken down into 10 key categories. And we were based out of Lyon and Paris during our entire month.
Hi, we are Dharmesh and Kiran from KD Travelers, two early retirement slow travelers sharing our journey and knowledge to help others do the same.
For any new viewers out there, we go over what our monthly budget is. We tend to do 4,000 Canadian, which works out to roughly 2,800 US. Now, give or take, of course, on the monthly exchange rate, but we just ballpark it into 2,800 even. So now also for new viewers, that doesn't include our flights. That's just basically our living costs. So once we've arrived at the location, any costs we incur for that period of time.
Yeah. And for this month, when we did arrive to Lyon and Paris, we did take trains between the cities, and that cost wouldn't be included in that. The only cost we included for transportation would be if we took any day trips.
That's right. Day trips for any trips.
Yeah. So let's start with our first category, which is accommodation.
Definitely. Okay. So for accommodations, the total was $2,639. It was a bit more of a higher expense this month for accommodations. We were planning on it. We knew it was going to happen, being in France, being, part of the trip in Paris. So we were definitely expecting that. So it broke down to 26 nights in Lyon, France, which is south of Paris. And that was $1,478.
Right.
I'm just rounding numbers off, of course, for you. And then Paris was 4 nights, and that cost us $1,160. So not a big difference between 4 nights and 26 nights. Shows you how expensive Paris can be.
But that was a cheaper hotel.
Yeah.
When we initially looked for Paris, we had found other hotels that were quite a lot more.
Yeah. We tend to pick somewhere in the mid-range, not too low, not too high, just so we feel comfortable for sure.
Yeah. For the accommodation, when we stayed in Lyon, we did stay in an Airbnb. This one was it was a studio, and it didn't have cooking facilities, so it was quite well contained otherwise. The only difference was compared to our other accommodation that we normally stay at, it didn't have a separate bedroom. Because we wanted to try a studio to see how we would like it.
Yeah, normally we do try to go, and Kiran likes getting this separate bedroom because it gives us time apart. She needs a break from me, so it's kind of nice for her to just get away, and we have our own quiet time. But this was our first time for a big long stay with a studio. As Kiran mentioned, we did have all the facilities. One thing it didn't have that we normally try to look for is an oven. So that was so we had a microwave and we had a cooktop, but no oven this time. So that gave us a little bit of a challenge as well as far as food was concerned.
But we managed quite well.
I think we did.
We managed quite well. Location-wise, it was really close to the train station when we first arrived.
That's right.
And it was between 20 to 40 minutes to pretty much everything we wanted to get
most
to.
Attractions when we walked, it was definitely... We didn't need to take a metro or trains or anything like that while we were in Lyon. Everything was walkable from our accommodation, so it made it kind of nice. We weren't right in the core of like Old Town or anything like that. We were, like I said, stayed outside, but still very walkable for sure.
Right. And also, we didn't have buses and trams close by if we wanted to use them. Yeah. So when we arrived, we actually walked from the train station to the accommodation. And when we left, we were able to walk to the train station
as well,
which took us to Paris. So I think overall, the accommodation was good. It had everything we needed. I think looking back, the only thing I would say is if we were staying anything longer than 2 weeks, personal preference would be a separate bedroom for me.
Yeah. For the studio experience. Yeah. We were there for 26 years.
It's just nice to have somewhere that's dedicated living space.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess in Paris, we were in a hotel. Such a short stay. We said we wanted to kind of just, we were going to be out all day. We knew our first time going through Paris, we were going to be go. So we stayed at a hotel that was central, but not central. I mean, so it was really nice. We ended up taking 2 metros from the train station to get to the hotel, which was nice and easy and convenient. And then once we were there, we just basically were able to walk anywhere and ever we wanted to go.
We walked a lot.
Yeah, we walked a lot. To give a rough idea, the accommodation was about 1 hour walk to the Eiffel Tower.
Yes,
It's about
that's
an hour
right.
walk there, but everything else was less than an hour. So usually, I think that was the furthest point we had to walk to from there. So definitely a great location. We would definitely stay there again. Everything was lively and convenient.
Yeah. I mean, we had the option of taking the metro, which was really close to the hotel that we stayed at, but we just chose to walk because there's so much to see as you're walking to your destinations.
Oh yeah, there was so much because we hadn't been in a large city for a while, so it was definitely a lot to see within that time, and lots of food options and restaurants around the accommodation as well. So
it was also our first time in Paris. It was nice to walk around. All right. Let's talk about the next category, which is groceries.
Yeah. So groceries for us, the total was $408 for the month, which is not bad. That was about 20 trips to the grocery store.
Yeah. Well, that would be a combination of grocery store and markets.
Yeah.
Because when we were in Lyon, as we mentioned, we had a kitchen, so we pretty much ate our meals at home.
Yeah.
We might have snacks during the day, like as we were walking about. But I think we did do a couple of picnics. So we would have picked up sandwiches and had picnics either at the park or by the river, by the Rhone. But other than that, our meals were predominantly at home. Yeah. So that was nice. And we did save a bunch of money. So we were either shopping at the grocery store. The one that we went to the most was, I think it was Carrefour, which was at the big shopping mall.
At the shopping mall, yeah.
But we also frequented the local markets.
Yes, there were outdoor local markets. Yeah. There was one every day, basically, close to the river there.
Right.
Which river was that again?
I think it was closer to Somme. But we also visited one on a Sunday that was close to the Rhone River. And that was nice because you could pretty much buy everything, including like stop for a coffee if you wanted to.
But the outdoor market did close at 1 or 1:30. 1:30 if I'm correct. So if you do want to go, you got to go earlier in the day and make sure you've got what you needed. Yeah. So that was really good. And it was a nice walk to get there and back.
And I found the pricing for groceries in France, like it being in the larger cities that we stayed at, I don't think the pricing was too bad. As a matter of fact, if we would have compared some of the staple ingredients like cheese and butter and milk, it was actually cheaper to purchase them in France than when we were purchasing them in Albania. Also international foods, because it's a larger city, obviously they're going to have a lot more access to international foods. For example, I think, what was the price of bread? Do you remember?
Bread,
in France?
I think it was 270, I think, euros. Yeah, it was 270 euros, I think, for the bread. The baguettes were a little cheaper. They were about anywhere from 115 to 130, depending on the bakery that you ended up at. Right. So the baguettes were definitely a little bit more affordable in that aspect and tasted great.
Yeah. And then we did find a really cool store in Lyon.
Oh, yeah. So the other store we found in Lyon was called Picard. We didn't really know it existed or what it was all about, but we were walking by and we thought we'd hop in. And it's similar for any of our people back home. It's sort of like the M&M back home, where they have all the frozen products. So they've got little coolers set up with all the frozen items in it, and you go in and you grab your prepared meals or frozen veggies or meats or anything like that.
Yeah. And
it was kind of cool. So we did do a little purchasing from there. I think I ended up buying some meatballs from there and things like that. So that was kind of nice.
I think we did. I think we purchased fish as well.
Yeah, I think we did some fish as well.
Some fish, which was really good. So I think for the reason we're mentioning this is that if you're not staying longer, like in places where you stay a week or even a few days, oftentimes it's harder to cook at home because you may not have all the ingredients and you don't want to go out and purchase all the spices to put together a meal. What was nice about Picard was the food was already prepared and it was easier to just cook it at home and not having to go out and buy all the different spices, and the prices were reasonable. So if you're only staying for a short time in around France, do look for Picard because it's a good option if you want it to make meals at home.
Now, the one thing I will say is that you have to be careful on what you select because, as I said, we don't have an oven. So we needed to make sure we purchased items that we could do in the microwave. Or
stovetop.
Or stovetop, yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Or if you have an oven, then you've got so much more selection there.
Yeah. let's move on to dining out, which once again we mentioned monthly is John's favorite category.
Yeah. But no, I'm trying not to eat. We're trying not to eat out as much as possible, just for health purposes. But okay, so for the total for dining for all of month being in Lyon and Paris was $572 roughly. Yeah, it was about that amount, right? And then that included, we always break it down into snacks and into sort of meals. Mm-hmm. So for snacks, we had 21 total snack opportunities, and meals, we did 25 meals out, which of course is a bit higher than we normally do. Yeah. But like I said, in Paris, we didn't have a kitchen. We were staying in a hotel. So
yeah. And then we did a day trip out of Lyon, so we had to eat out.
Yeah,
our entire day.
The entire day meal was out, snacks and meals. So the breakdown for the snacks, 21 snacks was $100. And then for our meals, the 25 meals was $472. So not bad overall.
That's actually really good.
It's pretty good.
I wouldn't say it's not bad. It's actually really good.
I'm a bit more conservative. I'm thinking that we could have done better.
Yeah. Now, in Paris, we didn't have to dine out as much, and I think that's because of the hotel we chose.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. The hotel did provide breakfast, so that was included.
Mm-hmm.
So we did have a decent breakfast in the morning before we headed out, and that means that usually when we do that, we basically try to snack for lunch. We don't have a full out lunch. We'll snack, and then that leaves us for dinner. But they also provided a late afternoon sort of snack, happy hour, as I mentioned, from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. They put out beverages, non-alcoholic, and you can get lattes and coffees as well. And then they'll give you little snacks, pastries, little cakes or cookies and things like that. So that was a kind of nice little surprise that we had.
Yeah, that was helpful. And then also our hotel room, the beverages excluding alcohol was included.
Yeah, in the mini bar. Yeah.
So which is really nice.
Yeah, so they give you a soda, an apple juice, and some water and they'd refill it every day. So that was kind of nice. That was included in. So that helped out.
Yeah. So I think because of the way our hotel was set up in Paris, we didn't end up having to eat out a lot. We could do, all we ended up having to do was we were responsible for one meal for the 4 nights, which was not very much at all. And we did do a really nice, I think, for just to talk about pricing for food, like we did a really nice meal when we went to look at the Eiffel Tower one of the evenings.
Yeah.
And that included, the meal included, I had a glass of wine, you had a beer, you had an appetizer, and then we each had a meal. Yeah. And that was only around $80.
Yeah, that worked out
$80 US dollars.
That worked out to 80.
Really good.
Which is good price for the location and the spot that we were in. We even met a nice couple that was sitting next to us, so that was nice. We had some nice conversations with them. So it was a really nice overall evening. We were celebrating our 30th anniversary as well, so it was kind of a special night. So we were treating ourselves.
Right. And then in Lyon, as we mentioned, we did try to cook at home as much as possible. But one of the things you should do when you're in Lyon is visit the local bouchons, which we did. It was a lunch meal that we had.
Yeah, we did a lunch there. Yeah.
And that one was roughly $58 US. We didn't have an appetizer, but we had a huge meal each. Yeah. And we also had wine and beer. That's just to give you a rough idea of what things cost. Yeah. And then we did have a day trip out, as we mentioned, like out of Lyon, we went out to Annecy for the day, and all of the meals in Annecy would have been included in this cost.
Yeah. So that was, overall, I think, for what we were and where we were, I think we did amazing.
We did really well. Yeah. So let's move on to the next category, which is personal care.
Personal care. All right. So the total for personal care was around $34 for the month. Not a lot. This month or at all. We had our categories broken down like we normally do. We have clothing as one item, and then we have hygiene beauty as the other. Yeah. So for hygiene beauty, it was around $23. And then for clothing, it was around $11.
Yeah, so we didn't spend much at all. And it was just items that we needed to replace, I guess, as you go along, because we're not carrying big products since we're traveling full time. So it was just little things that we needed to replenish.
And I think the other thing we benefited here was because we weren't actually taking flights or planes from one location to the next. We were doing trains.
Mhm.
We were able earlier on to pick up larger size bottles of certain things like
Right.
shampoo and soap and things like that. So we didn't have to worry about repurchasing when we got to the new location or running low at all. So
Right.
that kind of helped out for sure.
Right. And then, so the next category we're going to move on to is going to be health insurance.
Yep, our health insurance category we go through every month. We won't go into too much detail here, but the total for the month was $229. This is, once again, just our medical emergency coverage, I guess, if you
Right.
want to say. And it's just there in case we need it. We don't tend to tap into this too much, but will not travel without it.
Yeah. And keep in mind, the pricing for health insurance is really dependent on age. So depending on which age bracket you fall into, the price will vary.
Yeah, yours are very,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah. And people do ask us which company we use. We're currently using Genki.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to medical care.
Okay, so now medical care. I'll give you the total. The total was $23.
Yeah.
Now, once again, as we always let you know, medical care is for those incidental items that we need to get, that we're, that's not an emergency, we don't need to do anything. So this month we did have a little bit of expenditure.
Mhm.
And what was that for again? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, for some reason, when we were in Lyon, I don't know if it was allergy season, it's a bit windy too.
Mhm.
We kept getting debris in our eyes as we were out, plus our allergies were acting up.
Yeah.
So we needed to get eye drops. And just to give you an idea, the eye drops were around $11 US, $11 US.
$11.
I think it's a bit expensive for eye drops.
Yeah,
To me, that seems really.
It seems
Yes,
expensive to us.
it's expensive.
But maybe pricing back home's gone up as well. So
Yeah.
it might be more. You can let us know in the comments. Does that seem reasonable? But from what we thought, it might be a little high.
I recall being able to purchase eye drops. Like, these were just basic over-the-counter eye drops. They're not prescription, for about half that price.
Half that price,
right? And then we also needed, John was a little under the weather, and we needed to pick up some lozenges.
Yeah, just a bit of a sore throat, so we picked up some lozenges. So nothing major there. All right, so the next category is
Entertainment.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
Okay, so for entertainment, the total was around $41.
Yeah.
Now, we don't usually have a lot in this category most months, but here we did have a couple of things that we wanted to check out.
Yeah.
So one of the items we went to was that silk weaving tour, correct?
Right. So Lyon is known, historically, Lyon was the place where silk was produced, and they still continue to produce silk, and we wanted to learn about the history of silk weaving. So if you're in the area, do pop in and visit one of these silk museums. There's only two, I believe, in the area, and the entrance to that was €7.50.
Yeah,
$7.50 euro.
Yeah. Because we did the actual tour with the demonstration.
Yeah.
You can go without the demonstration and it'd be a bit less, but we chose to choose the demonstration, so that was per person. It was worth it. Definitely great to see.
Yeah. And then the fun thing we did in Annecy was we took a paddle boat in the lake, Lake Annecy.
In Lake Annecy, oh yeah, definitely.
So
We broke down. We did the touristy thing. There were definitely lots of people out and stuff, but it was just too good to pass up. The lake, the beauty of the water, and then the backdrop of the mountains. Had to treat Kiran to a romantic paddle boat ride, I guess. She did make me do a lot more of the paddling. If she won't admit it, but I did do more.
And we should mention, with our 4 nights in Paris, we actually did a lot of free museum. So really, if we had gone into paid museums or paid sites in Paris, our cost for entertainment would have been a lot more. We chose not to do that this time around. We did go to museums, but they were all free, so that was very
we went to the
helpful.
free museums, and then we stopped by the Louvre, but then we didn't go in. We just saw it from the outside on this trip, because we know we'll be back and we'll catch those and have to plan in advance. Getting tickets in advance is definitely crucial. Even though if it's free entry, you still need those tickets in advance, and they're not easy to come by the day before or anything like that. So plan ahead for sure.
Let's talk about our next category, which is transportation.
All right, so now this is transportation, which is our domestic transportation. We've got not flights or anything like that, but this is once we've arrived and we're getting around within the city or doing day trips. So the total for our transportation was $125 approximately, and that consists normally, if we break it down into two items, we have our ride share, and then we have our trains or buses or trams. So for the trains, buses, trams, we had $84 approximately, and then for our ride share, which was around $41. Now the ride share was just basically when we were leaving Paris.
Yes.
We were leaving early, so we needed to take a Uber to the airport from the hotel. So that was that one trip basically from the hotel to the airport.
Yeah. And then we also took a bus for a day trip from Lyon to Annecy. And we ended up taking a tram from our accommodation to that train station because it was very early in the morning.
Yeah.
Right?
And inexpensive. The trams were, I think it was like just over €2 per person.
I think it was $2.10.
$2.10, yeah. So very inexpensive to take the tram. And then the bus itself was very easy and frequent.
Yeah.
We do recommend, if you have time, taking the bus was definitely enjoyable for us. We got to see the scenery, casual, and it was almost like half the cost of taking the train,
Yes.
Which was a shock.
Yeah.
They took roughly about the same amount of time from what the website showed, but the cost was roughly about half. So definitely a saver there.
Yeah, I think it's also because we were trying to purchase train tickets at the last minute.
Yeah.
I believe if you purchase them a month out,
You might be able to get them a bit
you
cheaper.
should be able to get them cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to miscellaneous.
All right, so our miscellaneous, not a lot here this month, and usually isn't. The total was around $12, and usually it consists of two items: our miscellaneous items and our financial bank fees and things like that. This month we didn't have any miscellaneous, so it was just our transaction fees and bank fees, and that was the $12 roughly.
Yeah.
And that's because we use and we're not being sponsored, but it's the Wise card, and we changed it up a little bit this month. What we did was we kept everything in Canadian funds, and then every time we tapped, the Wise card would just do a conversion automatically, and then just charge us a minimal fee of, I think, depending on the cost, it could be anywhere from like 2 cents to 10 cents sometimes.
Yeah.
And so very inexpensive that way.
And it was convenient.
It was
because
definitely
we could tap everywhere in France, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to, I believe it's our last category, which is recurring.
Yep, category number 10. Okay, so now this one, the total was $171 approximately, and usually, and normally it is, of three items: our cell phone, our subscriptions and media, and then our life insurance. So the breakdown, now our cell phone this month was $66. We did go with an eSIM just to make things easier once we were traveling between from UK to Belgium to France. So it was Holify, unlimited data. So it came in very handy. It was easy to use, no problems there. Next was our media and subscriptions, which stays fairly constant. It was around $29, and that's for our cloud storage and our, my Prime Video and stuff, because I need to watch my shows and things. And then our life insurance. Now that was $76. We continue to keep our life insurance. Definitely something that we will be holding on to for now.
Yeah. So that's all of the categories. So the grand total for all of this is...
Okay, so grand total. If you follow us, you know that we were expecting, and we did go over budget last month. So we were hoping this month not to be so bad, but we are over budget. The total is $4,260. So not as bad as last month. We did make a bit of an improvement, but we were expecting these overages, and we planned for them. So that puts us about 48% over budget this month. Still not bad for everything that we did. Like we said, Paris accommodations weren't cheap. They were definitely more expensive. So yeah, I think we did pretty good. I think we did really good for that.
I think if we didn't include Paris, we would have been able to be much closer to staying on budget. But even with Paris, two large cities, being in France for a month, I think we did really well.
Yeah, we did.
Because I'm thinking back to when we would take a week or 10-day vacations, we would have exceeded this expense, like what we spent for a month being in France. Obviously, you've seen that if you stay somewhere longer, if you're cooking at home, your food expenses are going to go down, your accommodation expenses will go down. It does make a difference.
It does make a difference.
But for us, I think we've, as we mentioned earlier, we've balanced this out with our earlier time in Albania from Jan till around April, I believe.
Yeah, till about
right,
April.
for the 3 months that we spent in Albania. And as much as we do have a monthly budget, we also look at the total for the year.
Mhm.
So we spend a little more some months, we sort of make it up with the lower cost countries, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we review that as we get further in the year. I'm pretty confident at this point that we are close to being on budget as it is because of those lower months and these higher months. So definitely we are very happy where we are. For sure.
So that's basically our full cost breakdown for the time that we spent in France for the month of May. We hope that you found this information to be helpful as you prepare for your next trip in the area, or even if you're slow traveling in the area. We would love to hear from you. Do you find this information useful? If you're loving these monthly costs, we're going to continue to make these types of videos. And if you have a dream destination or any burning questions, please toss them in the comments below. We're always up for new adventures and ideas, so we really appreciate your input. Right? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Please look out for our upcoming video next week, which is going to be the destination video for Paris. So until next time, let's travel together.